I just see it because,
So I think I'm doing the only song, and then everybody else is doing thoughts. Oops, hello. Work song, it's on. Glenn said he had the first 30 minutes.
I got the next 45.
Okay, very good.
Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Hudspeth, Jimmy's brother-in-law, and on behalf of the family, I want to welcome all of you that are here today, and I also want to welcome those people that are participating via live stream and being a part of this celebration of Jimmy Siddens' life. It's important, I think, that we have it in this venue. This church was very important to Jimmy. I think he, according to Beverly, started coming here when he was about 3 years old. And it played a part of his childhood and into his formative years, and close friends that still remain and so forth. So it's good that we're having it here. I would like to open with a word of prayer. Please pray with me. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this day and for this group of people that are gathered here today. And Lord, we come here today to honor Jimmy Siddens, and we give thanks to you for all that Jimmy gave to us and how he touched our lives. We thank you for his warmth, for his smile, for his humor, for his compassion. Lord, there was so much that he has given to each and every one of us, and we are so grateful for that. We ask that you be with us now and let us feel your presence as we are here to celebrate Jimmy. In Jesus' name, amen. May 8th, 1981, about 8:30, around the dining room table at the Siddens home on Robin Road, was the first time I met Jimmy. Now, you ask, how do you have such great recollection? Well, Jimmy was 16 at the time, I was 17, and I was somewhat infatuated with his 18-year-old sister, Tammy. That was our first date. Now, I don't want you to think that I was so lame as to plan a date at my date's house playing cards and didn't have anything else in store. No, actually, I had planned to go to the Ranger game. It was May, and the Rangers were probably only about 10 games out of 500 at that time. So it was a good time. We thought it'd be a good date. We could actually talk at the game. But in case we couldn't, we had a mutual plan where I had a friend, she had a friend. We kind of set them up together to go with us. I don't think either one of them were too thrilled to be there, but they were good sports, and so we went to the ball game. May 8th, 1981, if you looked it up, is also one of the most catastrophic storms in U.S. history. We were at the ball game, the skies opened up, and there was grapefruit-sized hail. I'm not kidding. If you lived in Arlington, you probably got a new roof as a result of this storm. 100-mile-an-hour winds, so that plan fell through. Tammy suggested we go to her house and play cards, and so that's what we did. Jimmy was at the house, and that was really the first time I was introduced to him, and we were there, and he was going to play cards with us. Beverly was going to play cards. I think Jim was probably watching the weather, like we all should have been probably. But we were there, and I think we played spoons, actually. Don't know how that's played. Don't remember it. Think it's probably the only time I played, but that's what we were playing. And so we're sitting down around the table, and Beverly comes in and offers us all soft drinks. And the date of my friend said, do you have a Dr. Pepper? And she said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have Dr. Pepper. And she said, well, I guess I'll just drink water. And so we are sitting around the table, we're going through the rules of the game, and look up, and Jimmy's not there. And, we're kind of waiting on him, and then the door opens up, the back door. And Jimmy's coming in, he is drenched from head to toe, and he's got a Dr. Pepper in his hand. He had gone down to the fire station with his quarters, put his money in the machine, and brought back a Dr. Pepper. I thought that was kind of weird. But I asked Tammy about it. I said, well, does he have a thing for this girl or something? And she said, no, that's just the way my brother is. I tell that story because that translates into that tells you a lot about Jimmy, how he cared for people, his sensitivity to feelings. He would go out of his way. I'm sure many of you have stories you could tell about Jimmy doing something that was, extravagant, that might not have been the most, common thing to do, but he would do anything for the people he loved. And he loved his family, and he loved his friends, and he was compassionate, caring, felt deeper almost than any person I knew. And that's not always an easy thing, but he took that and it translated that helped him, I think, become a really good nurse. I know he was a good caregiver to the patient, but he was also always concerned about what the family thought, and he was concerned about overall, the feelings of people. For the 40 plus years that I knew Jimmy, he always carried that characteristic. Now, I don't want you to think that's the only thing about Jimmy. As I said, I was 17, Jimmy was 16 when we first met, and we became friends. Tammy and I dated 5.5 years before we got married, so Jimmy and I were friends before we were brother-in-laws. And a friendship at that age when you're in your teens and you're a male is basically based on busting each other's chops with insults and wisecracks and so forth. And Jimmy could, give it as well as he could take it. And so we had that kind of relationship, and it carried through the years. When I became a lawyer, Jimmy was always there with the lawyer joke. But, there's a lot of jokes about drummers as well. So I always tried to have one of those handy. We would watch movies a lot of times, I think, particularly comedies, buddy movies and stuff. And whether it was Night Shift or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or The Big Lebowski, we would watch movies, the same movies, and carry forward quotes and put downs and stuff. And we'd always throw one out and, what movie is that from? And so that was the game that we always played. And we could have, really good conversations. Jimmy was a great listener. But if you were a friend of Jimmy, and particularly if you were in his inner circle, you probably had an argument or two with him. Jimmy was very intelligent, had opinions, and he didn't mind sharing them. And it was always good to have those kind of things, the back and forth. You felt like, maybe we didn't change each other's mind, but we came away thinking about something. And that was a gift he had too. But you can't talk about Jimmy without talking about music. He loved music ever since, I first met him until the day he died. And, one of the things he always said is, when I die, I want it to be when I'm on my throne. That's what he called his seat behind the drums, playing, and I just want to keel over. And it didn't exactly happen that way, but he was able to play a couple of gigs the nights before he passed. And so that was where he was at his most happy point. And so we always talked about music and things, and he became familiar with my taste and would always suggest, hey, have you heard this? And he was better really at picking music than Spotify. He could know what every person liked, and he was very talented. I think he heard music differently from most of us. He'd come up sometimes, that part, and he'd tap out a drum lick or play, hum a riff on a guitar or something, and I'd kind of shake my head like, yeah, but not really. He heard things felt things on a level that, maybe some of us don't feel. But from the time that I first knew him, I'd go over to the house and he'd be in the garage with his headphones in and playing to the cassette and playing his drums to the cassette. And it was always, in those days, it was always Rush. And I know there are people in Canada listening, but Neil Peart, the drummer of Rush, was the gold standard. And Jimmy had it down, and he would play it to perfection. Maybe a little Van Halen thrown in, but it was mostly Rush during those days. And he became quite the virtuoso on drums and bass as well. I mean, he could play all different kinds of styles, and did play all different kinds of styles: country, rock, a little bit of jazz. He could do anything. But now I'm going to tell you about the last real conversation I had with him. Because this was the first thing when I was asked to say something. This is the first thing that came to my mind. We were up late. Jimmy kind of kept musicians' hour, so if you were going to have a conversation with him, it usually began around midnight. And, I think that night we stayed up till 3 in the morning, and we were just talking about stuff, and he was listening, and I was listening to him. But anyway, as always, we were talking about music. And, I was asking him, Jimmy, how do you learn? I said, when you're playing songs that people are familiar with, do you try to replicate them like it sounds on the radio? Or do you, is there some improvisation involved? What do you do to know all that music? And he answered my question, and it was just, I don't think he was meaning to say anything profound. But he answered my question, and he did so in a way that was just kind of a metaphor. And so he said, and this is a guy that was a virtuoso. He said, when I'm playing and people are listening, if it's not perfect, their ears will supply the missing note or the missing part because of the thing. But he said, when people come out, they just want to tap their feet and dance. And he said, it's just real important to keep the beat so that they can dance. And so this is the picture that I think about Jimmy. I hope he's behind the set of his life right now, and he's looking down and smiling like this, and he's keeping the beat so that we can dance. Thank you.
I've seen some people today that I haven't seen in a long, long time. If you're not sure who I am, I'm that scrawny little Bert kid that you hadn't seen in a while. Be honest, some of you I recognized right away, and some others that I don't think I could pick you out of a lineup if I had your name. Man, my mind there was something I was going to say and I forgot, and that's okay. I walked down here and I left my pen because I knew there's something. All right, I'll come back to it. Anyways, I came to it. Right after Jimmy passed, there were several people that immediately posted things on Facebook. And one of the first ones just really struck me. It was Larry Swinker, Lawrence. And he was talking about all these things that he did. Oh, man, I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss this. And told a little bit about his relationship with Jimmy. And I was thinking, like, hey, that's our thing. Wait, that's our thing, too. And I realized, well, it wasn't our thing. It was Jimmy's thing. And so I was really happy to see that. I don't know if Larry's in here. But I was really happy to see that because it kind of gave me a little bit of a paradigm shift, which, by the way, Jimmy had several of them for me. I want to start off talking about countenance. In Numbers 6, 22 through 27, this was Aaron's blessing. And the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, Thus you shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them." I believe this blessing continues today for all of Lord's people. The Lord's countenance was certainly upon Jimmy, and he was blessed in many ways. My hope is that today we continue the blessing by accepting the Lord's grace and find peace as the Lord lifts his countenance upon us as we remember and celebrate the life of Jimmy Richard Siddens. The early years. My family moved here also when I was about 3. So for those that have been keeping up and paying attention, Jimmy and I met when we were about 3. We were in Sunday school class together. I was talking to Linda Allard a few moments earlier. She was saying, "Yeah, I had both of you in my 4-year-old class." And I said, "Yeah, I think you deserve both of us." So we grew up here, spent a lot of time together, had a lot of the same activities. We both joined Boy Scouts together. I recall on the very first camp out, we were tent mates. So Jimmy and I were in the same tent, and there was a tent inspection. And as the adults came around there, unzipping tents, looking inside, and they came to our tent, and they were just, "That's the cleanest tent I have ever seen." It was probably the last time they saw a clean tent of ours, but we started off correctly. Jimmy and I spent a lot of time selling pancake supper tickets. That was the big fundraiser for our troop. I bet half the people in here probably went to a pancake supper with the scout troop at some point in time or another. Jimmy and I were out selling tickets in the Pantego neighborhood around his house. And when we got done, it was about dinner time. And I was invited to eat dinner with the Siddens. And I felt really included and part of the family. I'm pretty sure it was French toast, because I had never eaten French toast with powdered sugar on it before, and I just thought that was the most bizarre thing. And then I thought it was the best thing ever. But I think that goes to a lot of who Jimmy was, who his family was and is. If you're a friend of Jimmy or a friend of one of his sisters, you were part of the family. He showed a lot of compassion early on. We were out at Worth Ranch. We were staying at an Old Man Gillespie campsite. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I don't know how old we were, 14 maybe, might have been 15. He was talking about, when I grow up, I want to be a nurse. And I'm like, a nurse? Guys aren't nurses. Not only was he a nurse, but he was a NICU nurse. So if you imagine Jimmy, some big guy like me with little neonatal babies and taking care of them, that's compassion. That's an incredible skill. We got in trouble a lot. Sometimes he got in trouble by himself. Sometimes I was in trouble with him. Sometime at junior high at Bailey, a pair of cymbals went missing. Nobody knew where they went. I'm not saying it was Jimmy. It was not Jimmy. I will say it was not Jimmy. But back in the day, we had what we call Japanese throwing stars. I don't know if any of you older people remember them. I know the younger ones don't because you would be sent to detention and kicked out of school. But they were little metal discs with sharp points on them, and you would throw them across the room. And right next to the band director's office was a cork board, which was the perfect sticking target for these Japanese throwing stars. One day we were in band, and Jimmy rears back and boom, lets it fly. Went about 40 feet or so, and right before it got to the board, the band director opened the door and he goes, "Fuck! Jimmy! Come here." So that meant a couple licks. Our band director was a little short fella, and he used to keep us drummers in line by doing one-arm push-ups. Like, you don't want to get licked by this arm. So Jamie was all bent over, and band director was lining it up, and about the time he was going to light Jimmy up, Jimmy goes, "I know who stole the cymbals." Yeah, I don't think he knew who did it, and he got lit up on the next one. I discovered several years ago, I figured out why drummers are always in trouble. It's because we're the kids that like action. We want to play, and we want to play loud, and we want to bang on stuff, and it's physical. In percussion, so oftentimes, we sit back there while the band director, okay, flutes, okay, now the trumpets, okay, right? And you're going back and hitting and the drummers, we got nothing to do, we're bored. Or we're counting to 60 measures, and we get to 59, 2, 3, 4, 62, 3, stop! We're like, I hadn't hit the triangle yet, ding. So we're always left to amusing ourselves. One night in marching band, summer band, school hadn't started yet. By the way, Mom and Dad, y'all don't have to pay attention to this story. It'll be their first time hearing it. So it was myself and Larry Swink and Jimmy. We're on the snare line, and we're playing March Grandioso. Dun, 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 dun. John Philip Sousa. Bum. Fantastic song. The percussion line goes, da, 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 for 5 minutes. So one of us, probably Jimmy, thought it would be funny to do the Oompa Loompa dance. So we're alternating. Dun, 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 dun. Well, we're in the back. Nobody's going to see us except for Eckerbert, who stops the band, yells at us, told us we're acting immature, and we need to straighten up, go put your drums up, and get out of here. We're like, yes, ma'am, taking her snares off, put them in the cubby. Yes, ma'am, out through the first pair of doors. And I don't think a one of us made it to the second set of doors without falling over laughing. It was so funny to us. And we laughed out the second doors, laughed out to the parking lot, laughed all the way to the car, and then the realization hit us, we can't go home now. Our parents will know we weren't at band. So we raced down Park Row and went to Brahms for an hour. There was a period of time in my life when Jimmy and I weren't around. I was off to college. He was off to Nashville. He was touring with different bands. I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. But some of the best stories came from there, and I'd love to hear some more, what I call the Dark Ages stories. But two of my favorite that I was not an eyewitness to are, one, I love telling the story, one of my best friends was deported. And people are like, what? Yeah, he was in Canada. They kicked him out. I just always thought that was funny. If you're familiar with Because people are thinking, oh, Alejandro? No, just Jimmy. So, yeah, he was kicked out of Canada. But the arresting officer happened to know his fiance. So instead of actually being kicked out, it was like, well, if you promise not to play any gigs until you leave, and then on your way out, we'll finish signing the deportation papers. So, 2 months later, he's finally deported. I always thought that was interesting. The other one is involved Craig. I did not personally know Craig, but Jimmy and Craig were very close friends. Incredibly, I believe they met in Six Flags. Is that where they met, the characters? Well, Jimmy was playing a gig with this band, and I think he was Colorado or somewhere between here and Colorado, and he's all set up, and this guy comes walking in, and it's Craig. And Jimmy's like, oh, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, man, I'm headed home, for a while. And Jimmy said, well, where are you staying? He's like, oh, I'm not staying. I'm just driving on home. Well, why don't you stay with me? I've got a room for the night, and, it's already paid for by the band, so you can stay with me. He says, fine. So it's 3 sets. You play your set of music, and you take a break. And after the first set, this lady comes up to him and says, man, that's a really nice drum set. Is it for sale? He was like, well, I guess it could be. And she said, well, I don't know anything about drums, but I've been wanting to learn to play. I'll have my boyfriend come and look because he knows things about drums. Okay, that's fine, whatever. Plays the second set. At the end, on the next break, this lady shows back up with this guy. And he looks the drums over and he goes, yeah, that's a nice set. And how much do you want for them? And they kind of talked about it. And then Jimmy goes, but I have another set after this. I can't let you have them now. And so after the gig, the lady drives up in this Mercedes, and he sells her his drums. And then he hitches a ride home with Craig. So I just thought, that's like a Ferris Bueller thing, right? Everything goes your way. After the dark ages, we were kind of reunited. I did get 30 minutes, 45 minutes. What do I have to talk? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm going to wrap it up in a minute. So, and this is, we were good friends before, but after we got into our late 20s, early 30s, we really became great friends. We had the late night steak night. That's a mouthful. It was a mouthful. And it usually started like this. About 9:30 or 10, the phone would ring. Hello. Hey, man, I got these steaks. They're like 1.5 inch steak. They're really great steaks. You need to come over and we'll grill them. I'm like, look at my watch. It was on a Tuesday night. I'm like, okay. But I got to tell Donna first. So I'm like, hey, Donna, after you fall asleep, I'm going over to Jimmy's. She was like, okay, whatever. Got the greatest wife. So she would fall asleep. I would head over there. Well, he's had an hour to get things going. Nope. He's just like, man, I've just got him in the marinade. Like, just got him in the marinade? Well, at least the coals are going, right? It's like, no, I'm fixing to start the coals. So we would light the coals, and then, it takes 20 minutes for the coals to be right, and then the steaks are on, and it just seemed like forever. But while we're waiting for the steaks to cook, we would eat a big bowl of guacamole and a bag of tortilla chips. And that's enough to fill you up, but then the steak would come off, and it would fill the plate, and that's all. We didn't have, like, sides and stuff. It was just the appetizer and the steak. And, oh, my goodness, the juiciest, tastiest steaks you would ever eat. They were fantastic. And that's where a lot of great late-night conversations would happen. Now, I want to talk real quick about a paradigm shift. This is the first one. This is going to be one of two. What is successful? I was probably late 20s, maybe early 30s, and I was just struggling with the career, not going anywhere. And here's my buddy Jimmy, and he's making this great money, and I'm like, man, if I could just be making a little bit more money, if I could just have this career going, or whatever. It's like, man, you're so successful. And he goes, I'm successful. man, you're successful. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, man, you're married, you got kids, you got all these things. Like, yeah. Thanks for setting me straight. So I've taken that with me for 30 years probably. You know, anytime I feel like I'm not successful to the world standard, I pull out a different ruler, God's ruler of what successful is. That was good for me. IHOP and JJ's, if you're a good friend of Jimmy's, you were probably going to spend 3 or 4 hours at IHOP or JJ's. If it was in the morning, it'd be JJ's. If it was after 11 or 12, it's going to be IHOP. And many waitresses would get a $20 tip. A lot of Jimmy was sharing experiences. One of his favorite bands is King's X. I know Mom and Dad, y'all don't know who that is. Actually, few people know who King's X is. They're not very commercially renowned, but they have over a dozen albums. Very, very tight band. And he called me up one day. He's like, hey, man, I got tickets to King's X. We're going. I'm like, okay. And we went, and man, I had a great time. And I'm so thankful to have shared something that was really, really important to Jimmy, that I was a part of that experience. Jimmy had a lot of medical advice. One of the, I don't know how to start this other than say, I was diagnosed with diabetes. I was 45. And he laid out this explanation, hey man, this is diabetes, and here's the blood cell, and here's the sugar molecules, and they're doing this, and the pancreas is kicking out. And I'm like, this all makes so much sense, and it's so simple. And I remember thinking, you should write a book. You should write a cartoon book for the doctor's office that it was simplified. And he had a way of doing that, to simplify very complex medical things. One of the things I thought about when people started coming in, there are people here that knew him in the medical field. There's people that have played with him in bands, people that knew him from scouts, from church, from all over different things, different places. If you knew Jimmy, you probably went to one of his Christmas parties. Jimmy's Christmas parties were the best. He provided everything. Just show up, have a good time. I've got the food. And there would be nurse friends, musician friends. You know, I might know 2 or 3 people maybe, and the rest was like, all right, it's time to meet somebody new and make a new friend. I have a lot more stories, and by the way, we'll have opportunities for people to share in the other room later. But I want to wrap it up. I had countenance 1. This is countenance number 2. Well, let me start with a paradigm shift, and I'll finish up countenance 2. My paradigm shift number 2, we were talking one night, and he says, you know what? He says, everybody loves to see me. I'm like, how do you manage that? How do you manage that everybody loves to see you? That's what I'm thinking. And he said, some people love to see me show up, and some people love to see me leave. That impacted me a lot. And so I've tried to be the person that people love to see show up. That's who I want to be. And I got that from Jimmy, and that made a lasting impression on me that has changed the way I live my life. Along with that, I want to leave you with one last scripture. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That's one interpretation of the original text. Some of the interpretations say, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Getting back to the countenance, what is countenance? Countenance is your face, your expressions. When you get together with your friends, We are to sharpen each other, lift each other up, and that's how we get through life. Thank you.
And my role is a little music. This is a chance to sing a song that Jimmy used to ask to sing on Sunday nights when he was 7 years old. And if you take out your songbook that's in front of you, looks like that. If you'll turn to song number 570, we're going to talk just a second about this. I met Jimmy's sister when I was 19 and she was 18 in 1979 in their home. And Jimmy always was about making you feel good about yourself. And he made me feel really good about who I was. And he loved music, and he loved this hymn, A Beautiful Life. And when I was reading it, getting ready, this whole hymn reminds me so much of the Siddens family, the second verse. To be a child of God each day, my life must shine along the way. I'll sing his praise while ages roll, and strive to help some troubled soul. Please stand. Let's sing this together. Each day I'll do a golden deed by helping those who are in need. My life on earth is but a span, and so I'll do the best I can. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. To be a child of God each day, my life must shine along the way. I'll sing his praise while ages roll, and strive to help some troubled soul. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. The only life that will endure is one that's kind and good and pure. And so for God I'll take my stand. Each day I'll lend a helping hand. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun, while going down life's weary road. I'll try to lift some traveler's load. I'll try to turn the night to day, make flowers bloom along the way. Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. That's for you,
Everybody, I'm Mark. Wanted to spend just a few minutes, a little bit less time than the first two, maybe 5 minutes. Nobody hold me to that, by the way. Just talking about my friendship with Jimmy and the impact and the influence that he had over me over the years. I shared a lot of this on Facebook a couple weeks ago, but wanted to verbalize that again today. In 2005, I was living in Mansfield and got a card from Mansfield Music Mentors, run led by Jay Horton. And I'd played the drums off and on for the years, but never really stuck to it. I'd get in it, I was kind of all or nothing about it, and just never really had that commitment, that desire, that drive. And I reached out to Jay, he connected me with Jimmy, and I'm sure this has already been a theme today. And when we talked, I thought it was going to be 5, 10, 15 minute at the most, conversation. Turns into a 2+ hour conversation, just jump into the deep end, hit the ground running, and we just connected, felt like we were best friends immediately. And got back into playing, doing lessons. And it's funny that just the way I think about Jimmy, when I described him, even at the time, was not necessarily just a drum instructor that focused on technique. He was a friend, he was a mentor, and in some ways, it sounds funny, but kind of a psychologist. He saw potential in me, but he also saw some things that were kind of standing between me and ultimately, kind of using my gifts and talents. He saw that just some of the struggles I had with lack of confidence, and he would point those out in a very loving way, very poignant as well. And thinking about some times where, he would get very specific on, I see the way your posture right now. That tells me that you're stressing out, you're being too hard on yourself, you're not being forgiving of yourself, you're not having fun. And even things like just like your jawline, the way that I would tense up, I'm like, who even notices that? It kind of annoyed me a little bit, but it was also, again, it was very poignant, and it was very, very accurate, that insight as well. So he really helped me get over a lot of my own insecurities and helped me kind of put me out there a little bit. The other thing he noticed was that I wasn't really using any of what I was learning. I was taking lessons, and then I would go back home, put on headphones, and just kind of jam to some songs, and that was really the extent of my playing. And I think a lot of that was related to issue one, that lack of confidence. And so he really encouraged me to put myself out there, to get plugged in. I was heavily involved in church, but not in a music capacity or not on a consistent basis. And so he really encouraged that. He connected me with Liberty Church, where Jay was leading worship. And again, I mentioned this on Facebook, but I'll never forget that first Sunday where Jimmy kind of introduced me, kind of testing the waters a little bit. Is this something I even want to do? And are they even interested in me? Kind of a two-way interview type of thing. And Jimmy did all the songs before the message. Then there was a sermon, and then I went up and did the last song. And I was just such a nervous wreck through that whole thing, and he could see it. And it's so funny, he actually came up on stage, like as I'm playing behind me, and was getting in my ear, like saying, play with confidence, play like you mean it. And looking back now, even now at the time, or even 5 minutes after that moment, it's a little embarrassing, but it's also what I needed, and he knew that. So I'm so thankful for that. And just thinking since that time, that going on, again, that was kind of my audition, but every Sunday we would finish a set. I'm immediately reaching out to Jay, hey, what songs are we doing next week so I can practice 100 times every day between now and next week. But Jimmy was such an encouragement to me through that season. We met often, multiple times a week, helping me gain, that skill set, but also that confidence. And then just some of the conversations, the meaningful conversations we had along the way, I'll never forget that. So I think, since that time, that was in 2005 when we first connected, getting plugged in. I've been serving consistently since that time. And honestly, I don't know, looking back, if I ever would have gotten into serving consistently on a worship team if it weren't for my friendship with Jimmy and for the things he saw me at that time and helped really encourage me to get out of that, to overcome some of those obstacles, and just seeing that potential in me and really coaching and encouraging that. I'll always be thankful for that. I think about also, there's just been some really tough seasons, even beyond, we did the lessons for a season of life, and then I kind of moved on, but we always remained in touch and stayed close friends, had lots of great visits over the years. And I just think there were some really dark seasons that I went through, really significant trials, and just what an encouragement Jimmy was to me every step of the way. And no matter what I needed in that moment, whether it was just a sounding board, some godly advice, a shoulder to cry on, no matter what I needed, Jimmy was there for me in that moment. And I honestly don't know how I would have made it through some of those times, you know, without Jimmy's friendship, without his influence. So all that to say, I mean, I'm definitely a better musician, better drummer, a better person for having known Jimmy. I'm so thankful for him. I love him. I'm so proud of him. I'm so grateful for that friendship. And if I could be half the friend he was to me, to those in my circle, I would consider it success. So thank you.
You're gonna have to bear with me. I'm not much of a public speaker. It's not easy when you lose a brother. And, but anyway, I appreciated what Bert really had to say, you know, talking about old times. First off, I'm Larry Swink, AKA Lawrence, or Lotion Boy, Mr. Nipples. You'll hear that story. I have a lot of nicknames. But, you know, listening to Bert talk about things that went on in high school, percussion section, it was crazy with Jimmy. Jimmy was the magnet. Everyone just was drawn to Jimmy. And, you know, I want to talk a little bit about his adventurous side. He was a very adventurous kind of guy. And I'll say the first time I met him, it was the very first day of band camp, or not band camp, but when the percussion met for band, what was that, 80, 79, 80? I'm guessing, sophomore year. And I was from a different school. They all came from Bailey. And so I was sitting alone, hey Bert, and I was sitting up front. And you might remember it because you were sitting next to Jimmy, and Jimmy kind of whispers up, hey man, hey. He goes, what's your name? I said, Larry. He says, hey, come on, you doing percussion? You go, yeah, come on up here. You know, so, you know, he's always the inviting type, you know, and immediately he starts digging into who you are and all that kind of a thing. So, you know, that's the beginning of a relationship, and it lasted till now, you know, and it continues on because he lives on through us. Anyway, I remember, yeah, band camps, you know, we go to that wherever we went. Challenging too. You remember the towel fights? When we did the rat tail fights and we challenged each other. We couldn't do it on the field because we'd get in trouble, so we did it in our dorm rooms. And we spent like half hour preparing our rat tails, and the guys made a ring, and we're in there, and we came out bloodied, bruised, and showing up at the next day. You know, do you remember that, Bert? You know, crazy things like that we get into. There's stories I cannot tell, you know, especially in church. Times we got in trouble and what he would do. I shared that with Beverly here recently, and I don't think I will do that. I digress. But yeah, drumming through the halls of Arlington High School, he was saying, you know, it was always a challenge to see how loud we could play going between the lunchroom and the hallway, the courtyard, trying to bust out the windows. That's before the pep rallies, you know, just percussion. And if you went to Arlington High, you'd understand. And I'm sorry, Bert. I still feel bad the time that, you know, Jimmy and I, the three of us, and might have been someone else with us, went to Joe Ed's Bomber. We had open lunch. And I still feel bad to the day. You know, you had to go use the restroom as we were walking out, and we left you. So many antics. He was, you know, talking about the dark ages. You know, he kind of disappeared when he goes to the ski slopes or Nashville, and you know, this is just something that was just really kind of cool with me. He came in from the ski slopes, and I hadn't seen him for some time. And we go, and Jimmy's always the type of guy you could go out with a $1.25 and have the best time. We don't have to do anything, just being together, we're just cutting up laughing all the time. And I had this new Cutlass, beautiful car, head turner, you know, V8. This is a sweet Cutlass, and I loved this car, and I hadn't had it very long, but you know, it was right there in front of Arlington High School on Cooper. We were going off somewhere, and he had me laughing so hard. I was like, I don't know, I just, you know, wasn't paying attention. I just creamed into a tank, totaled the car, you know. So the next day, you know, I'm kind of bruised up. It was literally like a month before the seatbelt law went into effect. So I went through the steering wheel, so I was kind of bruised up in the chest and all, and, you know, he was okay. And he calls me up the next day, and I'm kind of bummed out. And he says, hey, what are you doing? And I said, nah, nothing. He goes, man, I want to come pick you up. We're going out. He goes, I don't know. I'm not really much in the mood. He goes, yeah, come on. I'll be over there in a little bit. Let's go see a movie. He goes, what's on? What are we going to go see? He goes, it's a good movie. You'll like it. I don't know if you've ever seen, I'm sure a lot of you have, John Cusack, Better Off Dead. It kind of was fitting at the time. Living in an apartment, we were neighbors in an apartment over in North Arlington for a time, and just make things just quick little bullet points. You know, fun things like being creative. You know, drinking Colorado Bulldogs was his favorite drink at the time. But we would mix up some Colorado Bulldogs and make hamburgers, grill out all the time. And he had a buddy that lived down below him that had scuba gear. And he had a marble chess set. And so he gets this wild deal and goes, hey man, he goes down and gets his scuba tanks. He says, hey man, let's go play some chess. Okay. And he says, what are we doing with those? He goes, we're going to go play chess. So we go down to the pool and we go down the deep end and we're playing chess in 8 feet of water down at the bottom of the pool. Then we become roommates. We have a duplex. That's during college. What was that? The late 80s, 86 or so. 80s. No, it was about 87, 89, 88, 87 to 89. We were roommates twice, so I kind of get my days mixed up. You know, there I acquired Amber. The Golden Retriever, is he here today? The one that Golden Retriever Amber came from? He's not here? Okay. So I acquired my Golden Retriever through Jimmy, a buddy of his, and he was like our, you know, it was my best friend for 12 years. But, you know, Jimmy loved Amber as much as I did, and we had a lot of fun time with that. We got into cycling very heavily for a time. We did a lot of long mile, MS 150, the Cowtown Classics, you know, long rides. And I was training for the criterium race for the Hotter Than Hell. And I wanted to get into that. It's my first time, but I had the wrong kind of wheels for my bike. So they came out with the new tubeless tires that they're more rounded instead of oblong, which you can grip because you have to lean at a very far distance at a high speed, degree-wise. And so I saved up my pennies because they're not cheap, and I bought these tires and wheels, and I had them installed on my bike. And Jimmy was dating his Ramona way back in the day. And they were out on a date, and so I can't wait. We lived not far from the Parks Mall, and it was still being built at the time. And so I went out, took it out to the parking lot, and I couldn't wait to get on it and test it out. So I was wearing my cycling pants, I had my cleats that locks in your pedals, I had a mesh tank top on, had my helmet on, and I'm out there, and I'm in a lean, and something happened. My bike went out from underneath me, and I went against the asphalt sideways, and the asphalt just went right across my chest. And so I'm looking at my bike, my wheels are ruined, all that is gone, and so I just crying and in pain, I'm crying over the bike more than myself, going back to the duplex, and dropped my bike in the living room, go in there and put iodine in the bathtub, and try to get the asphalt out of my skin. And Jimmy walks in. He sees the bike, And the classic Jimmy, he's like, leans up against the threshold and goes, man. I mean, you've all heard it. He just, man, has that look, That and his Benny Hill salute, I'll never forget. He says, all right. He didn't even ask what happened. He was just stand up. And so I stand up out of the bathtub, and he gets a sponge. Well, first off, he gets a wet rag, and he stuffs it in my mouth. And he gets a sponge and pours iodine all over the sponge, and he just creams across my chest, getting all that asphalt out. And he stood back, and I'm screaming out, he stands back, and he says, man, you don't have any nipples. They were gone. They were totally gone. And so that's how the nickname Mr. Nipples comes along. So many things like that. It's so many. It's kind of, the late nights. Like Bert said, it's IHOP and having those late night discussions and deep, whether it's theological, whatever it is. I mean, it's just like our deepest conversations were like when your body is so tired and your mind is so wired on caffeine. Try it sometimes. It's crazy. But anyway, he was always a step above me, and he says, why do you think that? And I don't know, I'm tired, but I don't know. But he catches you, that, and he gets a lot of information and gives you a lot of advice at that. Then we lived at the one of my dad's rent houses for a time. That was before, marriage and all that stuff occurred after that, So the adventures that we just constantly went on, there's just countless. And he was over one day, and he's a very unselfish guy. He's a benevolent guy. He's always giving. And one thing that just really touched me is something, if he feels bad about something, I think he carries it for a long time, but he eventually will make amends. He's come back and he's thought about things that happened a long time ago that I would forget all about. And he says, man, back then I did this, and, I don't think that settled well with you. And, it's like, just know there was no hard feelings over that. Or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, something like that in that form. But he was over one day, and, and I had a CO2 little BB pistol. I think I was using it to shoot rats on a highline pole. They travel across the wires. And but anyway, he got a hold of it, and I had my cymbals stacked up against the wall there. And, he just pointed at my ride cymbal and took a shot. It didn't really do any damage, but it put a little BB dent in the cymbal. No harm. But I was kind of like, what the heck are you thinking? Why did you do that? And he goes, I don't know. He knew it was loaded, whatever, so, it's just he thought it was kind of harmless. And he goes, what were you thinking? But, it didn't do any harm, so I didn't really think, very much about it. I pretty much, I continued to play it, no problem. And that was, I guess it was, Jay, I think I was playing at your church one day. Where are you? We were playing at the church one day, and 2 services? Okay, because I played at both churches, the one over Midlothian. So in between services, he takes me down, and he says, it's always bothered me that time I shot your cymbal. Okay, no big deal. It's all good. you know? I don't even have that symbol anymore. And, and rewind a little bit, I was telling him, I'm a real big Pat Metheny, Lyle Mays fan, and, they use flat rides, and I just love the sound of flat rides. That's a ride without a bell on it, and just a lot of stick definition. I just really love the sound of flat ride. And I mentioned that to him some time ago, okay? And, and he says, well, I feel bad about it, and I got something for you. And he opens up his car door, and he pulls out a UFIPS flat ride. He goes, well, actually, he didn't say there's something for you. He pulled it out, and he says, what do you think of this? I go, wow. UFIPS too. I mean, UFIPS are not a cheap cymbal brand if you know anything about cymbals. I mean, they're probably about another 30% more than a typical Zildjian, Sabian, standard kind of cymbal. Uniquely made. And I said, man, that's a sweet cymbal there. He goes, I want you to have it. No, I can't take that. But he insisted I take it. No, he wasn't going to, don't even give it back. It's yours. I feel bad about it. I want you to have this cymbal you talked about. You wanted a flat rod. I want you to have it. And talking with Beverly, and that's the benevolency. That's the unselfish giving spirit that Jimmy has. That so many of the stories that you hear up here. I think I'm sitting back there and I'm listening. It was it's like you said. It's a Jimmy thing. Bert said it's a Jimmy thing, and it happens with all of us. And I come up here and I talk about things, and everyone, people can relate to that. I relate to what everyone has said up here so far. I hear the same. I've experienced those same thoughts, those feelings, those adventures, everything. And that's the unique thing about Jimmy. He's really touched us. His spirit is in us, and he'll live on through us, and that's comforting to me as a brother. From another mother, but he's still a brother. and I adopt you as my mom too. I always thought of you. Beverly's and the Siddens family has always been a special place for me. So always home when I arrive there. Prayers to you always, and we'll see Jimmy again soon. Thank you.
My name is Eric Reyes. I think it's an honor for me just to be here and met the Siddens family in 2017, not too long ago. I remember it was difficult times in my life. We moved here to Texas, and I remember that we just moved to an apartment, and we just have the basic things in the apartment. I was with my kids. I have 3 kids, Zion, Mia, Nathan. And I remember that we were there one night, and then Jimmy and Beverly just came, and they just came, and they got groceries, and they just walking, and I met Beverly before. I didn't meet on that time Jimmy, but they just came, and it was like I met Jimmy for a long time. We just talk, and then he grabbed a keyboard, and he gave us a keyboard. And I remember that it was really special because my kids love music, so we didn't have internet or TV on that time. Also, Jimmy gave us a TV, but it was really simple the way we live on that time, 2017. But that keyboard, it was really special because it was like whenever we got to the house, the first thing we do is just go to the keyboard. Whenever my kids arrive to the house, the first thing, they just go to the keyboard. And we spend a lot of time, and then I started getting to know Jimmy. And on those times, that was really difficult for me. People always ask me, how's it going? And just tell my story. But Jimmy was not like that. He was just there. If I needed to talk, he was there. And that was really special for me. That was really special. When I was in high school, I start reading Proverbs, and there was one proverb that it really caught my attention. On that time, I didn't know much about the Bible, but there was this proverb that says, "The memory of the righteous is blessed." And I didn't really understand that verse, but what it stuck to me when I was in high school, it was, oh, God want me to have a good memory so I can be intelligent. So that was, in that time, I was the way I used that. But through the time, I realized that it's not that, it's more than that. It was just like, in this instance, it's just thinking on Jimmy's life, the way he blessed us, the way we can just go back and see how much he touched our lives and how much he touched my life and my kids, and just being there, being available. I remember going to Jimmy's and Beverly's house, and he was just there. The drums were there by the living room, and we just sat down, and sometimes we talked, sometimes we just stayed there, didn't say anything, but it was perfect time for me. And I did appreciate that. I think he has something unique, because he was there. He cared for you. He was paying attention on the things you need because he was there. It was not like what do you need? It's like, okay, he looked for the things that he can bless us with. And that I didn't cut it on the moment, but then I realized how much he was paying not only attention to what's going on in my house, but in my kids. And then one time he arrived with a guitar for my son, and he gave it to him. And then I remember he brought some friends over to the house one day. When we moved to a house after the apartment, we celebrated with him, and he came just to celebrate our new move to another house. And he brought a set of drums for my youngest one. So he was there. He was there constantly, just checking up, just being present. And I really appreciate that. It says, and this is a verse that I really love, and it's in 1 John, and says, we know that we have come to know him if we kept his commands. Whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person. But anyone who obeys his word, God's love for God is truly made complete in them. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must live as Jesus did. And I think that I really applied that to Jimmy. Didn't have to say much, but he was always there, and he cared. And I love the fact that we can celebrate life, that we can come and just, it's not over. It's just not. But we can celebrate in Christ, that we will see each other again, right? That we were able in some ways to live a life here that represent the way we see life through Jesus. And that's something that I appreciate on Jimmy. And when I was reading this flyer, it just made me think about him. Let's just celebrate life, right? Let's just take things that we see, things that we live, things that he teaches, because we all learn something, and I learned something really valuable from him, and it's just the caring part that is coming, not asking why you were there or how you got there, but just being there so you can come in through. Really, thank you for inviting me, and it's nice to know the Siddens family. Thank you, Beverly. And I'm glad to be part of the celebration of his life. Thank you.
It's funny, the words I've prepared, most of them have already been spoken today. It's pretty cool. My name is Steve Perkins, and my friendship with Jimmy is probably pushing 50 years now. And I'll just hit a few highlights of our time together. I guess when I first met Jimmy, I think it was Bailey Junior High School. That was before I was into music, and we were kind of an odd pair. The hobby, our thing we had in common was, I guess you'd say, total disrespect for authority in junior high school, or more like contempt or scorn or disdain. I don't know the best word for it, but we really tried hard to make our teachers mad and make them cry. And Jimmy was he was kind of my mentor in that. He was pretty good at it, and we got a lot of fun out of that. So I feel bad about it today, but that's kind of how I met Jimmy and how we got to be good friends. And high school and our pep rallies, I was one of those outcast guys that sat at the top of the bleachers and tried to act cool like I didn't care, but Jimmy and the drums would come in, and it was just pure energy. You couldn't help but get up and move. And I kind of invented moonwalking and twerking at the same time back then during high school, so it was really, really good memories. And I guess in our 20s, wasn't until then we got to play music together. Somehow we ended up working in the same building in the night shift, and it's great to hear the stories about him philosophizing. And I guess ponchos was our thing, and that's the one thing I could beat him at, is eating ponchos. What do they call them? Sopapillas. So they bring sopapillas and put down the flag, and Jimmy'd put it right back up and say, "Bring more sopapillas, please." And we just kept going with abusing the all-you-can-eat privilege. But that was the first time in our early 20s I got to play music with Jimmy, and he kind of liked the sound of my Les Paul, and I was always a huge fan of his drumming. And me and Jimmy and Craig got together, and I kind of expected a garage band jam session, drink a few beers kind of thing, but it wasn't that. Jimmy had us prepare. He put some songs on tape. It was like, I don't remember all the songs, but I heard one earlier, Rush, Limelight, and Steely Dan, and Tommy Two-Tone, and just a bunch of good old songs. He put them on tape and had us prepare before we went in to play together. And just played with him a couple of times, and it was really the most joyful time I ever had playing music. It was just us three, no audience, no fans, just us three playing music, and it was just really profoundly satisfying. And I made a tape of one of those sessions, and I promised Jimmy I'd find it. I still haven't found it, but I know it's in my house, and I'm gonna find it. But it was really fun, and Jimmy and Craig were just so tight and together and professional. But as good as Jimmy was in playing music, he was a better friend, and he never stopped being my friend in all those years. And great to hear all the other comments about his unselfishness. He was one of those friends that if I was in trouble, he was going to be there. He would be there every time. I hope I was that for him. I got grandkids now, and somehow they got listening to the 80s rock band, big hair music, Motley Crue and Alice in Chains and some Skinner and those kind of things. They're barely teenagers. I don't know how they learned to like that stuff, but they'll play it real loud in the truck and say, "Papa, listen to that. Listen how good that drummer is. Listen to that." And I always roll my eyes and say, "Yeah, my friend Jimmy was better than that. He was better at bass too." And I just go on and on about it. And one day my wife asked me, "Why is it every time you talk about him you say, 'My friend Jimmy, my friend Jimmy, my friend Jimmy'? Why don't you just say Jimmy?" And I didn't know the answer at the time, but just proud to call him my friend, that's all. And haven't started getting over this yet. The only thing that gives me comfort is knowing that Jimmy lived. He lived every minute doing just what he was supposed to do, just what he was called to do on this earth. And I believe that. And just proud and honored to be his friend. Thank you.
I didn't jump up here too soon, did I? No? Okay, all right. Before anybody leaves, Beverly wants everyone here to know that there's refreshments back around this direction if you're not familiar with this building. Out those doors to your left, and then into a gymnasium. If you don't know where you're going, just hesitate a few seconds and then follow the crowd. Also, Jimmy was in an Eagles tribute band for many, many years, and Jay and Todd, he played with them for many years. I don't know how long he's known you, Jay, but they are going to play some music later for some entertainment and have a good time. Jimmy's latest drum set that he was playing, it's set up, and I saw it. Anyways, Larry is going to be playing on Jimmy's set, and share some stories, enjoy some music, enjoy some food, and enjoy fellowship and love on the Siddens family. Thank you. I knew something was missing. Please join me in a prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, Almighty, most gracious, we're so thankful for Jimmy and for the influence he's had on all of us. We pray for your Holy Spirit to comfort Beverly and his sisters and their family. We look forward to the day that we can all gather again. Please bless everyone that's here today and provide them safe passage as they return to their homes. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Beverly just said, let's go have a party.